I'm 4 months in with the Apple Vision Pro, and I think I can now talk about this thing in a much more honest way than I could after the first few weeks. Because when you first get a piece of technology like this, especially something as futuristic and as expensive as Vision Pro, there's always going to be a honeymoon period. You're blown away by it, you're excited by it, you want to explore everything, and you naturally end up reaching for it all the time because it feels new. Now that I'm 4 months in, the excitement hasn't gone away, but the reality of where it actually fits into my life and work is much clearer. And I think that makes this a better review. Let's get the biggest misconception out of the way first. Apple Vision Pro is not a failed product. Now, whether you personally think it's a flop or not depends on what lens you're looking through. If your expectation is that every Apple product has to sell like an iPhone, then of course this thing will look small by comparison. But I don't believe that Apple ever intended this to be that sort of product. This was never going to be an iPhone. It was never going to be an iPad. It was never going to be something that millions upon millions of normal consumers suddenly decided that they needed. It's far too expensive, far too niche, and frankly, far too socially weird at this stage for that to happen. What it is, in my view, is the first serious step in a different type of computing. Apple calls it spatial computing. Whether that exact phrase catches on or not, I do think they're trying to establish a new way of interacting with digital content, apps, windows, media, and workspaces. And after 4 months, I still think that's fascinating. But I also think it's important to say very clearly that fascination is not the same thing as necessity. That's really the heart of my view on the Apple Vision Pro now. It's amazing, but it's not for everyone. If you're an enthusiast, you're fully invested in the Apple ecosystem and you're naturally curious about new technology and you've got the budget, then sure, it's an incredible thing to try. You probably don't need me to convince you. But for everybody else, this is not a must-have device. It's not essential. It's not the sort of thing where I'd say you have to go out and buy one immediately. And that's actually one of the reasons I respect it more now than maybe I did at the very beginning, because I think I understand it better. When Apple first announced Vision Pro, I was absolutely sold on the idea emotionally. I remember messaging John and Alex in our Tailoring Talk magazine chat straight away saying I was definitely first in line. I didn't really care about the detail at that stage, it just looked cool. It was new Apple technology in a completely new category. Then I saw the price tag and that cooled me off instantly. I did the Apple demo back in 2024 and it was magical. That first impression absolutely lived up to the hype. But I walked out of there with a very real concern, which was this. If I spend that sort of money on this thing, am I going to use it for a few days, show it off to a few people, and then let it gather dust on a shelf? At that stage, I just couldn't clearly identify what role it would actually play in my life. That changed when I hit a real world problem. I needed more screen real estate, properly needed it. My desk was becoming more cramped. I had more going on with design, editing, using multiple windows, more complex working days, and I started exploring those XR glasses from Xreal and Viteor because compared with Vision Pro, they looked cheap. And to be fair, those glasses were great for watching content. For productivity though, they just didn't cut it for me. The text clarity wasn't good enough and the displays were not stable enough. I was getting headaches just trying to use them as virtual work screens, and that sent me back towards Vision Pro. Then Carolina said that our business could sanction an Apple Studio display, and the funny thing is, once I started looking at the cost of the XDR setup, Vision Pro began to make a lot more sense. Suddenly it wasn't just this mad expensive headset. It was a serious display solution plus entertainment plus a portable spatial computer all in one. That was the use case that drove the purchase for me. And that use case is still the reason I have zero regrets over buying this thing. Now, has my opinion changed over 4 months? Slightly, yes. I still think it's brilliant. I still think it's one of the most impressive pieces of technology Apple has ever made, but I'm not using it every single day in the way I was in those first 2 months. Part of that is practical and part of that is social. In an office or workroom environment where you need to collaborate with other people, Vision Pro can feel off-putting. Even with eyesight, even with Apple's attempts to make it feel less isolating, I still feel a bit weird wearing it around other people. I feel a bit rude talking to someone with the headset on. Carolina thinks it looks stupid. And if I'm honest, I can see why normal people would feel that way. So these days, I reach for it much more when I'm on my own and I need to deep focus. That's probably the clearest way of describing where it fits in my life for me now. It's no longer this thing I'm constantly experimenting with every day just because I'm excited by it. It's become more of a specialist tool. When I need to lock in, block out the world and get properly focused, that's when Vision Pro still comes into its own. The other factor is that I've had to take a bit of a break from the YouTube channel, as many of you regular subscribers would have noticed. The channel takes a huge amount of work and my business always has to come first. Since Vision Pro was the environment I was using a lot for video editing and that side of things, that naturally means I've not been in it quite as much over the last couple of months. So the reduced usage is not because the product has failed me, it's because my routine has changed and the social reality of where I can comfortably use it is now clearer. That said, there are things about Vision Pro that have held up unbelievably well. The first is simply the magic of using it. The displays still look amazing. The audio is still incredible. In fact, I haven't felt the need to use AirPods with it because the built-in spatial audio is so good. Every time I put it on and fire something up, whether that's work or entertainment, there's still this sense of wow. I also discovered over time that you can pull virtual screens and menus much closer to you, almost within arm's reach, and interact with them in a much more direct way. So if the eye tracking gets a bit tiring or isn't being as accurate as you'd like it to be, you can actually reach out and interact with the interface in a way that feels almost like a giant floating iPad. And that's a really cool part of the experience and one I've appreciated more and more as time has gone on. As a virtual display, I still think it's brilliant. That's probably still its strongest use case for me personally. It's such a versatile way of creating a large workspace wherever you are. The problem is, and here comes the honest bit, the Vision Pro has not replaced my standard setup. The last month or so, I've been doing practically everything from my normal desk, which is my MacBook Pro, connected to my Apple Studio display. And yes, I do still get frustrated with screen real estate, but sometimes if the Vision Pro is upstairs, I just can't be bothered to go and get it. That's not a technical criticism, that is just plain laziness, but it matters because convenience always wins in real life. So, at 4 months, I would not describe Vision Pro as my default computer environment. I would describe it as an excellent virtual display solution that I still value, but now use much more intentionally. When I get back into more regular content creation, it will probably go back to living on my desk again because that is where it does make a lot of sense. The entertainment side, though, has absolutely held up. This thing is magical for movies, TV shows, concerts, and immersive content. Apple has 3D films in the Apple TV app. Disney Plus has these immersive environments that are just so cool. I love the Avengers Tower setting that puts you right there in Tony Stark's quarters overlooking Manhattan. The alien Earth environment is incredible as well, genuinely atmospheric and slightly terrifying. My favorite is probably the Disney Theatre because it really does feel like you're sat in your own private cinema. The Brad Pitt hot lap piece filmed for the F1 movie was one of my favourite things to experience on the Apple Vision Pro. The Metallica immersive concert was awesome, and the Red Bull Extreme sports content is incredible. There's also a short film called Submerged that was shot for Vision Pro, and it's one of those experiences where watching doesn't really feel like the right word. You're in it. You feel like you're there as the action unfolds around you. And that side of Vision Pro has held up just as well as it did on day one. It's still as wow-inducing as ever. Where things have cooled a bit is in the practical compromises. Battery life is the big one. If you're really using Vision Pro for serious work, the battery just doesn't last long enough, for me anyway. If you're passively watching something, fine, you can get away with it. But for normal work, more demanding tasks, extended desktop use, and really leaning on it, the battery seems to drop quickly. So most of the time now I use it plugged in. That obviously changes the feeling of freedom a little bit. The other practical issue is portability. The headset is quite big when it's in the case. Bigger than I think I imagined it feeling in day-to-day life. So I haven't ended up taking it between home and the workroom as often as I thought I might. Again, not because it can't do that, but because in the real world, the size and faff of moving it around becomes a factor. And then there's the glamorous issue of the marks on my head. I have no hair, so after even 15 minutes or so, you can start to see where the band has pressed onto my scalp. That's not ideal when I'm seeing clients throughout the day, and it's another reason why I'm unlikely to use this in the workroom unless I have a hat with me to cover up afterwards. These things sound small, but they do matter because they all add up to the same broader truth, which is that Vision Pro still feels like a very private device. I would never wear this in public, ever. Partly because I'd feel ridiculous, partly because I think socially it still feels very taboo, and partly because I'm worried that someone would literally snatch it off my head and run off with it. For me, this is very much a home device or a serious private work tool when I need to focus. And that to me is one of the clearest signs that this category is still immature. It's not just about price. It's not just about Apple. It's about the form factor itself. People point to Vision Pro and say it proves Apple got it wrong. But I'm not convinced, because if you look around the wider market, other devices in this category haven't exactly become mainstream sensations either. That tells me the issue is not simply Apple made a bad product. It tells me that this type of device is still a little bit early. And that's why I come back to the iPad comparison. In the early iPad years, most people really only used it for reading, browsing, watching things, and checking emails. It took years before the software and habits evolved to the point where many people could genuinely consider it as an alternative to a laptop. Vision Pro may follow a similar path, or it may be the stepping stone to something else entirely, maybe glasses, maybe a lighter headset, maybe some other form of wearable computing that becomes more socially normal. Either way, I still think this product matters. So where do I land after 4 months? Apple Vision Pro is amazing, but it's not for everyone. If you already have a great MacBook and monitor setup and you're perfectly happy, there's no real reason to add Vision Pro into your setup. It's not essential. It's a nice to have if you're deeply into the Apple ecosystem, highly tech curious, and you have the money. For me, the reason I still keep it and have no regrets is because I had a proper need driving the purchase. I needed that additional screen real estate. I needed that virtual display feature to solve a genuine pain point. Without that, I would not have bought this. So I think that's the question anybody considering Apple Vision Pro needs to ask themselves. Do I have a real use case? Not a vague one, not it looks cool, not it might be fun. a real use case that makes the price feel justified? If the answer is no, then don't buy one. If the answer is yes, and you're the right type of person for this sort of early adopter technology, then it can be an incredible thing to own. For me personally, I still see it as a successful product because it solved some problems I had. It still gives me experiences I can't get anywhere else, and every time I put it on, I'm reminded that this is one of the most impressive things Apple has ever made. It's not mainstream, it's not necessary, it's not for everybody, but I'm still very happy that I have one in my house. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video useful, please do hit that like button, subscribe, it's free, and you can also check out our channel memberships if you'd like to further support the show. I've been Roberto. This has been my 4-month review of my Apple Vision Pro. I'll see you on the next one.